Okay, so part three, and we're just gonna wrap it up here. Just a couple more slides. So I was almost done on the last one, but ran out of time. So as I was talking about, these different types of coral reefs called fringing barrier and atoll actually represent stages through time that have to do with the rise in sea level and what happens to the reef over time. And I think the next slides here kind of give another image of what's going on. If you look at the bottom here, the fringing reef, again, you have a volcanic island that is rising above sea level here, and the reef starts to grow along the edge of the island. Now note that the reef itself actually begins deeper than the surface of the water. So the underlying or the submerged part of the volcanic of the volcano itself is already begins some reef growth because obviously reefs are submerged underwater. They're found in the subtidal zone. And this happens all around the whole island itself. So you start to get reef growth along the edges and then up into the shallows here. Okay, and then so as sea level rises and you already have sort of reef formation in here, what happens is because there's this sort of sharper peak to this island over time, or to the volcano over time, that the lagoon starts to form in between here because the reef can only grow where there's enough sunlight for it to be able to grow. And then sand starts to fill in. That's what this yellow area is in here, as there's erosion and breakdown of calcium carbonate particles from all kinds of organisms. The sand will start to fill up in the lagoon area. So the reef can keep growing as long as there's enough sunlight penetration here. And that, again, with enough time, the island is completely submerged. And so you see one large central lagoon area instead of these separate lagoons, just like we looked at from the top view over here, fringing reef, barrier, and then finally the atoll. And again, in that one photograph, there actually was still some island in there. So remember also that these are a continuum. So we talk about these three main types as if they're sharply categorical. So you can be somewhere between sort of a barrier reef and an atoll stage where there's still a little projection here, and then sand starts to build up. And so, you know, again, seeing these exact kinds of reefs it isn't always quite the case because of the continuum that exists between these types. So some people might argue, is that a fringing, or is there a barrier, or is the lagoon big enough? Even with fringing reef, there can sometimes be a little bit of a space in here. But again, the reef is growing on the edge of the land, and that you can see, again, the sandy area, the lagoon area, maybe some projection from the lagoon of where sand has piled up to form little cays or keys. And then finally, so hopefully between these three pictures, and I believe that's my last one, between this one, these, and this one, you can have a visual representation of what's happening over time as coral reefs form. And again, as I mentioned, this is the major way that we see coral reef formation in most of the world that involves volcanic activity. And in fact, there are reefs that form not around volcanic island areas, but as long as you have a hard enough substrate, you can get the same kind of formation where you'll see fringing and barrier reef, but you might not see atoll formation necessarily, although that depends as well. So hope you enjoyed all three parts of this video screencast of the PowerPoint lecture, and look forward to hearing your comments about it in class. All right, take care.